Hi folks, the Filipina P here, and it's that time of the month again. Time for a mailbag video. You guys are always emailing me with your questions about Filipinas, and I admit we can be a real mystery if you don't know what makes us tick. And that's the whole purpose of the mailbag, to shed some light on our bizarre behavior. Today we've got three more interesting situations, including a man who's disgusted by his in-laws' eating habits, a guy whose Filipino girlfriend won't stop testing his loyalty, and a man who wants to use toys to prevent a vanilla bedroom. Will a Filipina freak out or put her freak on? This ought to be fun. Before we get started, let me ask you a big favor. A lot of you were recently unsubscribed from my channel without your knowledge, and many of you are no longer getting my notifications, so you're not even being offered my new videos. It's some kind of glitch with YouTube, so please check to be sure if you're still getting alerts when I post something new, okay? And if you want to hang out with me all week long, join me at my Patreon page for extra videos and a place where you can chat with me in real time. I hope to see you there. So our first email is from Darren in Pennsylvania, who writes, Dear Miss P, please don't think bad of me for what I'm about to write. I'm actually a good man who's reached an age where he knows what he wants, and I'm just looking for a woman who's compatible with my desires. I'm 58, I've been married twice, and I've been dating American women for a total of 4 decades. The thing is, almost every relationship I've ever had ends up the same way. Maybe it's my fault, or maybe it's just the way things are, but it always seems to follow a certain pattern. At first, everything is great. There's all kinds of energy with a new person, including in the sex department. Of course, things get predictable and stale, but the women I've been with don't seem to want to make things better. They just seem absolutely fine with the status quo, even if it means that the sex dries up. Well, that's not okay with me. I'm still very active and interested, and I want a partner that feels the same way. And I know one thing that works to keep the bedroom alive for years. Toys. I won't go into all the different kinds, and it really doesn't matter. Toys keep things new and fresh and exciting, and they also take the performance pressure off an older guy, if you know what I mean. But here's my concern. I'm no longer looking in the US for my next relationship. The women here have decided that the only thing I'm good for is to help him pay the bills. But what's in it for me? So over the past few months, I've watched probably hundreds of your videos, and you really do go into depth about how Filipinas think and feel. Well, thanks. That's always what my channel's been about, so I'm glad you appreciate it. I'm really interested in the things a traditional Filipina can offer, like loyalty and really caring about me. But I'm afraid that the average provincial woman might not be open to a more adventurous sex life. From what I've heard you say, Filipinas are usually shy and reserved, and although I've never heard you talk about toys, it doesn't seem like it's something they'd be too crazy about. Please tell me I'm wrong. Signed, Darren. Okay, Darren, you're wrong. Sort of, but let me explain. Now, Filipinos all have different personalities, no matter whether they are city girls or country girls, but we do have some things in common with Western women, so let me start with those. You mentioned how the women you've dated end up pulling a bait and switch on you, where things seem great at first, and then once they have you, the sex just falls away, and maybe they gain a lot of weight and don't seem to care about it. Well, let me warn you, it can be the same thing in the Philippines. Even though we make good wives and companions, once a Filipina gets a ring on her finger, she often doesn't worry too much about what she looks like or what goes on in the bedroom. But that's usually the older women, not women in their 20s and 30s, which is probably why you guys usually end up in that age range. But as far as keeping things exciting by bringing toys into the bedroom, you might get luckier than you think when choosing a Filipina. Now, it's absolutely true that most of us appear shy and reserved, but that's often just in public. The thing is, in our culture, we wear two different faces, and the one we wear in private can be completely different. Now, if you start talking about sex stuff to a Filipina you don't know really well, the first thing she's gonna do is cover her mouth with her hands and start looking for the nearest exit. But if you bring the subject up at the right time, like in private, you'll be able to gauge her true reaction. And it might not be what you're expecting. Because it's not so much about us being shy, it's about what we're used to. Now, this might blow your mind considering where you come from, but the stores in the Philippines don't even sell that kind of stuff. If you walk into a Robinson's appliance store and ask for a vibrator, get ready for the sales lady to start squirming, and not in a good way. She'll probably think you're a pervert and try to find someone else to help you. In fact, the only places in the whole country that sell that kind of toy are in the big cities like Manila, and it's only recently that you could buy them online. Well, at least that's what I've been told. So it's just not something we have any experience with. Filipinas don't get together with friends and giggle about some great new Bilbo they discovered. And yes, I said Bilbo like Bilbo Baggins, so they won't demonetize my video. If I had to take a guess, I'd say about 98% of Filipinas have never even seen one before. But even if you could buy one, almost no Filipino would. And it's because there's another thing that Western folks have trouble comprehending. It's because we don't have our own bedrooms. Now, of course, some Filipinas have their own rooms, especially when they get older. But we stay at home with our parents much longer than you folks do. And until we finally leave the family nest, we're sleeping right next to mom and dad, which is not the best time to pull out a big old Bilbo and give it a test drive. But just because we've never seen a toy or used a toy, doesn't mean we'd be opposed to it. Now, once again, let me say that all Filipinos are different, and you might find some of us that jump at the chance to try out the toys on your playground. But if you want a Filipino to feel comfortable, I'd advise you to avoid the following things. If you try to introduce a Bilbo that's too large, you're gonna scare her away before she even gives it a chance. Start out with something undersized, Filipino size that's not so intimidating, and let it grow from there. And definitely don't bring any backdoor buddies to the party. At first. That's not something a lot of us would be willing to try, at least not until we have a stable relationship together. And please, don't try to get your Filipina to walk around in public wearing one of those remotely operated vibrators. That's advanced level shenanigans, and she'll be terrified someone's gonna find out. If you ever convince her to try one, just do it at home when she's sitting on the couch. Not now! Anyway, Darren, you're right about Filipinas being shy, but we're also happy to please you when we can. So I bet you won't have a problem finding a woman who enjoys your idea of a play date. Let me know how it goes. So our next email is from Justin in Bacoor, which is just outside Metro Manila. Justin says, Hey Miss P, I wonder if you can help me figure out what to do with my girlfriend. Her behavior is completely out of control, and she just won't stop snooping and making a fool of herself. We don't fight about it, and it's not like she's screaming at me and accusing me of stuff, but she's always trying to look for evidence that I'm not faithful, even though I've been completely loyal. So here's the story. I'm here in the Philippines for an extended period. I don't know if I can stay starting right now, but even if I have to go back, I'll try to take my girlfriend with me, even if I have to marry her. The thing that drives me nuts is her constant jealousy and the stupid things she does. I really don't know how long I can stand it. When we first got together, she got her best friend to try to seduce me, and when I turned her down and told my girlfriend about it, that's when she told me I passed the test. She also contacted one of my exes and demanded to know why we broke up and if it had anything to do with me cheating. A few weeks ago, somehow she got into my phone and was scrolling through my pictures and who knows what else. I was pissed and I told her never to do that again. I changed my password and activated the facial recognition feature. And just a few days ago, I woke up with my girlfriend holding my phone in front of my face. She acted like she was just handing it to me, which is kind of funny because I was asleep. But at least she didn't get into it because you have to have your eyes open for it to work. So anyway, that's when I realized this was going too far. I told her I had to do some serious thinking, but I wanted to hear what you had to say about it before I walked away. She's been on her best behavior since then and told me that she'll stop with the paranoia, but I don't believe her. I think I know what you're going to tell me to do, but who knows? Maybe you'll surprise me. Thanks, P. Well, prepare to be surprised, Justin, because I'm not gonna tell you to do anything. You're the only one that knows how you feel about your girlfriend and her behavior, and what your chances are of getting her to see the light. But what I can do is tell you what she might be thinking so you can decide if it's worth it to continue your relationship. So it's obvious she's extremely suspicious and jealous, just like every other Filipina. And she's taking it way too far. But why? Well, here's some possible reasons. First of all, you need to know that in our world, good things just don't last. Someone always takes them away. She probably doesn't think she deserves you, and you wake up one morning and realize you can do better than her. She assumes you'll eventually cheat because most Filipino men do cheat, and why would you be any different? Now, you might think when someone is overly suspicious, it means they're the ones that are cheating, but it's not necessarily like that here. Just like I advise you guys to vet a woman by listening to what she says and looking for inconsistencies, she's doing the same thing with you and looking for the chinks in your armor that she's positive have to be there. She wants to be sure her eggs are safe in your basket, and to be honest, it might take her a while to chill and realize that you represent a soft place to settle down. Now, so far, you might think I'm just making a bunch of excuses for jealousy and snooping, but what I actually did was list the reasons why Filipinas act the way they do. Is snooping okay? Is breaking into your phone okay? Of course not. And what you decide to do about it is up to you. She may never change, and even if she does, it might take longer than you're willing to invest. But you're the only one that can say if it's worth it. I'm sorry we Filipinas are so insecure and hard to deal with, but we're so darn sweet at the same time. Decisions, decisions. So our last email of the day comes from Gregory, who also lives in the Philippines in Calatagan. Let's see what Gregory has to say. Miss P, I need your advice about something that sounds funny, but it's actually kind of gross, and I really want to find a way to avoid it. So my girlfriend wanted me to meet her family who lives out in the boonies, and of course, they invited us to dinner. When we got there, the food was already being set out on the table. The centerpiece was a giant plastic bowl of spaghetti, and within a few minutes, it was covered in flies. No one seemed to care or do anything about it. So before we sat down, I got my girlfriend alone and told her there was no way I was eating that. She looked a little shocked and a little upset, but she covered for me by saying I wasn't allowed to eat pasta because of my diet. I didn't realize how much I was going to appreciate that, because once dinner started, everyone was sticking their bare fingers into the other bowls of food on the table. And after the meal, the men all went outside and started passing a glass of alcohol around in a circle, and everybody drank from the same one. I made sure to sit just outside the circle, and I got up before the glass got passed in my direction. Now, I'm not a germaphobe, but ever since I got to the Philippines, I've been getting sick just about once a month. And the last thing I need is a blast of everyone else's germs. I know how important the ritual of food is in Filipino culture. So my question is, how am I going to deal with this every time we go over to her family's house? Thanks for your help, P. Gregory. Well, at the beginning of your email, you said your situation might sound funny, but that really doesn't sound funny at all. It's something a lot of you expats are gonna have to face, and I don't blame you at all for feeling like you do. So here's a couple ways to look at it. There's the guy who says, screw it. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. If he gets sick, he gets sick. But he figures he'll build up a tolerance to all the germs, if he survives that long. Then there's the guy who says, hell no, I'm not eating that. And I'm not drinking from a glass that's had 20 pairs of lips on it. You can actually get herpes from sharing glasses, so no thanks. Now, I'd tell you which group I agree with, but the only thing that's important is what you think. And it sounds like you do not want to participate. So, what do you do? Well, this might sound stupid, but it's simple. It works. And the best thing is, you've already laid the groundwork. Just tell everyone that your doctor back in the West put you on a very strict diet. And although you'd love to eat and drink with the rest of the family, you'll have to take a pass. Say it at the very beginning. Stick to your story and you'll never have to deal with the problem again. It avoids any hurt feelings, and the only person that I ever know is your girlfriend. You can thank me later. Well, that's it for today's episode, and I'll be back next Friday with something new. I hope you all have a great weekend because I most definitely will. Till then, folks. If you think about it, I'm kind of like a fisherman, helping you get a little nibble on the end of your pole. If you're trying to hook a Filipina, it doesn't matter what line you use, how long your rod is, or even the size of your worm. The important thing is finding the right hole so you can reel in a good one. I can tell you what bait to use to lure a Filipina. And if you get a scammer on the line, I can show you how to smell something fishy so you can throw her back. Now, the best way to get a Filipino fishing lesson is to join my Patreon page, where I hang out in the chat rooms to give you free advice, and where you can also see exclusive videos and features. And remember, there's always more fish in the sea.